First of all, thank you so much for being here. I know everyone is incredibly busy, and finding a full day or finding half a day or however long I can get you, we're very excited to have you here. I think we put together a pretty good day, and there'll be some surprises and some interesting stuff going on. This has been brought to you by a Founders Fund grant that Michelle and I submitted. So that's where a lot of our funding, all of our funding has come from. The goodwill of our awesome speakers. Like I said, it was a Founders Fund grant, so as you probably know, the funds were not unlimited, but, hey Tony, but luckily our speakers are here out of the goodness of their heart. And by the letter A. Come on. It's funny. All right, you guys, thanks. And special thanks to Dr. Stanyo and the Department of Peds because they did provide funding for our videotaping, so this will be accessible for viewing later. And thank you to Ken back in the back. Everybody wave at Ken. He's helping us videotape. So, in terms of CME, we have been approved for CME. In your packets, in your red folders, there is a CME form and an evaluation form. The CME form you can fill out and give back to me, and I will give to Amy Richardson, and she will keep it in your file, so in case you lose a certificate. Once you turn in your evaluation form to me, I will give you a certificate of CME. Okay, but you got to turn in your evaluation. That's the key. Please turn your cell phones and pagers to silent. Again, I know people are going to be in and out, and I had to remember to do mine, but just for everyone's. Okay, so what to expect today? First, we're going to start with a teamwork lecture by Coach Jared Haas, who probably knows teamwork better than any of us. We're going to talk about giving effective feedback, and then we're going to talk about promotion myths and facts, which I think will be a great panel. Over lunch, Ben Taylor is going to talk about social media and how that affects what we do in medicine. Then you actually get a break. From 1:30 to 3, we're going to do the PACE palette, and some of you know what that is. You've probably heard the residents talk about what color they are. Oh, you're so blue. Oh, you're green. Or you're yellow. Well, today you're going to find out what color you are. Okay, and Ann Klausner is going to run that. And then our last lecture is He Said, She Said. Michael Barnett and Ashley Nichols do a great talk on gender differences and how to communicate effectively in the workplace. So, because you'll see this slide quite a few times today. Michelle and I, who are the planners, have nothing to disclose. Just a few other things. Bathrooms are back here on this back hallway. There is a door, and you can walk all the way around this room if you happen to go out this door. There's a door back here if you need to go out that back hallway. So, any questions before we get started? Quiet group. Anything? Tony, nothing? Okay, all right, so.
You have to be present for the door prizes.
You must be present to win. I do apologize, and we're not going to wait until the end to do all the door prizes, but you must be present to win. Yes?
At any point during that agenda, are we going to be able to actually meet each other?
No. No, not at all. That's not the point of this conference at all. Yes, we might be able to interact and network just a little bit while we're here. Okay, good question. Anything else? All right. So as we were putting this together, teamwork, we did a survey a few years ago asking people what they wanted in terms of a faculty development curriculum. This is something that the ACGME is requiring of key faculty that work with residents and with students. And teamwork, how to work well as a team. We all work on different teams. Some of us work in the ER, some of us work on pulmonary and the ICU. We all work on different teams. Come on in, guys. But it's important to know how to work together. So, as we were thinking who could speak to this, one name easily came to mind, and that's Coach Jared Haas. Born in South Lake, and please interrupt me at any time if I get something wrong, because I probably will. Born in South Lake Tahoe, he grew up playing basketball. He played 1 year at Cal before he transferred to KU, where he had a very successful career. I got all these pictures off Google. So, he, after playing at KU, he authored a book called Floor Burns, Inside the Life of a Kansas Jayhawk. And Floor Burns is a statistic that they developed just for him. And I forget how many you had your junior year, but it just is a testament to his tenacity and his aggressiveness while he plays on the court. While at KU, he obviously played with a lot of passion and enthusiasm. And these are characteristics that he has, luckily for us, brought to UAB. After his playing career, he began coaching formally at the collegiate level, but also was a very visible leader in the youth community, hosting several basketball camps, which he's continued to do here. And his camps are coming up, I think, in June. He began coaching at KU under his former coach, Roy Williams, and this is Allen Fieldhouse. If any of you guys have ever been there, you know what an impressive site it is. And then moved to UNC with Coach Williams in 2003. Everything you read about Coach Hass makes it very evident that he is very highly respected. And I think there was nothing that epitomized this more to me as we were sitting there, as he's getting ready to coach his first home game at Bartow Arena. You look over, and you may not be able to see this, but if you look closely, sitting right next to him is Coach Roy Williams himself, who made the trip, just to be there for his first home game. And I thought that was such a nice gesture, an amazing gesture, and I'm assuming it probably meant a lot to you too, but I think that just says the amount of respect that people have for Coach Hass. We are so fortunate to have Coach and his beautiful family here at UAB, and I speak for a lot of people when we hope to see you on the sidelines of Bartow for many years to come. There are, as I mentioned, Coach Hass did author a book, and we have a couple copies of the book signed, freshly signed, but you don't just get them for free. So we're going to have a couple of Coach Hass trivia questions. Will you pass those little pieces of paper out? You can't search on your phone. You have to just write them down and pass them in, okay? And closest number without going over wins. And if there's a tie, then we'll draw. All right? So the two questions is, what was Coach Hass's career point total? And out of 101 games at KU, how many did he start? No searching. Put your phones down. You cannot search this. You have to write it down and pass them in.
Are we allowed to know what position you play?
Shooting guard. But you also need to know I played with some really good players, so...
Is this both colleges or just at KU?
Just at KU. The career points is career. But at KU.
The second one is...
Is KU.
How much does it pay to the Mizzou fan?
Huh? I'm actually, I don't tell Reed, but I'm not really a Mizzou fan.
You're not going to read these off and we're totally ridiculous. Not even in the ballpark.
No. If they're not in the ballpark, they will go in my pocket, and no one will know. Yes, Lori? Huh? Out of 101 games, how many did he start? Everybody got the piece of paper? All right. Without further ado, and Coach Hass does not have anything to disclose, I don't think. No. So without further ado, we will collect your numbers and come on up.
One of the lessons is you need to make sure you listen when people invite you to do these things. I thought she said we have unlimited funds. But apparently that was not the case. And I did enjoy the brought to you by the letter A. Obviously I have 3 young kids, and it's sad on the road. I'll be traveling across the country, and night after night it's on the road sometimes, and I'll be flipping through the channels, and I catch myself, I'm like stopping at Sesame Street or Diego or all those kind of things. So I enjoy watching the cartoons, and it's my one chance to get away from the kids, and I seem to keep going back to watching cartoons. But I'm glad to be here. I wanted to tell you guys a quick story. If you've heard me talk before, you may have heard it. But about a year ago this time, I was actually about a year ago in 3 weeks, I was at the University of North Carolina as assistant coach. We were going through the NCAA tournament, and we had won a couple games. And at this time, UAB had fired their coach, and the job was open, and kind of reached out, and the process was starting, that they seemed to have an interest in me, and I certainly had an interest in being here. And so I was, they asked me to come down to do an interview, and it was actually in Tallahassee with the AD, because he was down there, and it was on a Monday. And it was right after we beat Creighton to go to the Sweet 16. And so we're in Greensboro, I think, and it was a late game, or an afternoon or evening game on a Sunday. So we ended up getting out of there at 11 or 12 at night, driving back to home. I get home about 1 in the morning, and I tell my wife, at this point of the season, I have a lot of white shirts, but at this point, we hadn't been in the dry cleaners in a while. I have no white shirts. So I have my suit, and I found a green tie, and I'm all fired up, and I'm like, I have no white shirt. So my wife's like, just buy one at the airport. I said, all right, I'll do that. So I have a flight down that's going to arrive in Tallahassee. Again, we get back at 1 in the morning, and I go to the airport at, I think, 5 or 6 a.m. to get on the flight to go through Charlotte to Tallahassee. And I get there plenty early, and I go into Brooks Brothers, and I buy a shirt for $88. I was like, seriously? There's no sale shirts or something like that? And then the lady even asked me, she's like, do you want me to steam it, open it up, and we can press it right here? I was like, well, no, because I have to go back in my carry-on to go anyway, and so I'm going to get there early enough to iron it, and I'll be okay. So I was kind of upset I spent $88 on a shirt. But anyway, I get on the plane, and I was Zone 5 on U.S. Air, which basically means it was a full flight. And they say, well, sorry, you can't bring that carry-on. You have to check it we have to check it to your final destination. I'm like, fine. And I just knew right then it wasn't going to be good. So I said, all right, take my bag and get on the plane. I was on the plane. I was happy about that. We get into Charlotte. And as we fly into Charlotte, it was wild. I mean, the cloud cover was as flat as this desk right here, and all you could see were about 3 or 4 of the skyscrapers popping out of the top of the clouds. And so it was a low ceiling, and we land, no problem. So I'm like, all right, everything's good. And then I get to the next airplane, and it says delayed, 20 minutes. I'm like, that's all right. I have about 3 or 4 hours here before I need to be there anyway. And delayed another 20 minutes, delayed another 20 minutes, delayed another 20 minutes. And then about an hour later, 2 hours later, canceled. And I just turn white. I just start panicking now. So nobody can help me. I call the lady at the desk and say, hey, I need to get to Tallahassee by 4:30. I have an interview. I have to be there. She's like, well, our next flight doesn't get to Tallahassee until 7 o'clock. I said, it's not going to work. I said, you got to get me there. And I got my iPad out, and I started looking at the U.S. map. And I said, Mobile, Alabama, fly me in there. You can't go there. And I just started throwing out cities. And she's like, we can get you there at such and such time. But I'm like, that looks like a 5 or 6 hour drive. I can't do that. I throw out about 7 cities. Finally, I say, Jacksonville, Florida. She's like, we can do Jacksonville, Florida. She's like, and I'm looking at him like thinking, it looks like about 3 hour, 4 hour drive. She says it lands at, it was exactly actually, it was 105. It lands at 105. And she's like, the problem is it leaves all the way across the airport in 10 minutes. So I said, book it. I said, well, I'm thinking I don't have my luggage anyway. I can sprint across the airport. So I do it. I sprint across the airport. I know my luggage is lost now and everything else. So I get there right in time. I'm the last one on the plane, going to Jacksonville, Florida. And I do not talk to my wife this way. But I called her right when I'm board and I said, Mindy, shut up and listen. I need a rental car in Jacksonville, Florida to drop off in Tallahassee. And I need a full suit, tie, and everything else. I need that immediately. I'm landing in Jacksonville in an hour. Bye. Click. Plane leaves. I land, and Mindy goes, all right, well, it's spring break down here in Jacksonville, Florida. There's not a car to be had. She had a friend of a friend of a friend of a friend find a car. And she did a great job, and she said, all right, I got the car for you, and there's a Brooks Brothers in the airport on your way out. I'm like, man, Brooks Brothers again. So I literally, I'm not kidding you. I walked in, I had my credit card out. I walk into Brooks Brothers. There's no customers, thank goodness, and there's 2 workers there. I threw my credit card down, and I said, I'm leaving here in 3 minutes. Here are my sizes. I'm out of here. I said, I'll find the tie. I need a shirt. I need pants. Now, luckily, I was wearing my dress shoes, so I didn't have to buy shoes. And I said, I'm leaving here in 3 minutes. And they're like, well, would you like this or this? I said, just hurry up. And I said, press the shirt because I know you can, because they offered it at the last place. So they did it, and it was 3 minutes later. I get out of there. $1,000 later, it wasn't price shop or anything else. I'm like, give me a break. So I get out of there, get to the rental car, hop in the rental car as fast as I can. And I promise you, this is not a fabrication at all. I get in the car. The speed limit was either 70 or 75. I got up to that number, and my car started beeping. I looked down, it says, you have reached your maximum speed. The car had a governor on it. Golf carts have governors on it, so you can't go very fast. This had a governor that wouldn't let you go, I think it was 75. I got to 75, and I'm thinking I'm going 95 the whole way. I'm going to get there in time to take a shower. I hadn't shaved, hadn't done anything. So I got to 75, and it just stops. So I knew I wasn't going to get a ticket. And so, and at this point, I knew that I was going to get there. And it was, I had my wife looked it up and everything. She's like, all right, it's 3 hours and 12 minutes to get there. And I just drove as fast as I could. I got there 10 minutes before my interview, 4:18, I think it was. I pull into the hotel where the interview was. And my wife, again, she did a great job. She called the lady at the front desk and said, hey, I don't have a room there or anything. I'm leaving after the interview to fly back. And she talked to the lady at the front desk, and she got me a room for 10 minutes. So I ran out. I walked in. She goes, oh, you must be Jared. And I said, yeah. She's like, here's the key. Go upstairs. So I run upstairs. I was going to get there 3 or 4 hours early to prepare for the interview, get my things organized and everything. I'm flying. I'm shaving. I'm cutting myself, everything else. I come downstairs. I'm sweating. I'm just totally disheveled. And I go to the front desk. I'm like, man, thank you so much. That was great. And the AD is standing right there. Brian Mackin is right next to me, and I'm just looking like an idiot. He's like, are you Jared? I was like, yeah. He's like, why don't you take 10 minutes and relax for a sec? We'll come get you in a few minutes. So, and then at that point, we did the interview. Everything somehow got together and went well. And then went back to the airport, dropped off the car, picked up my carry-on bag that was left at the airport. It did make it, so I grabbed it, went back to Chapel Hill, and then was offered the job soon after that. But it was quite the since that day, it's been quite a year, and it's almost been a year to the number. But it's one thing. It's one of my assistant coaches at Carolina. I told him the story, and he said, "Why on earth?" He said, "I would have never done any of that." And I told him the answer was simple. I said, "I want the job." I said I was willing to jump through some hoops, and I think, you know, with teamwork, as I start talking about teamwork a little bit, that's one of the big things is you want guys that want to be on the team. And I think that was one reason, hopefully, I got the job, is I proved that I wanted to be on the team and I wanted to lead the UAB basketball program. So at the end of the day, I don't think it hurt me, but I don't think I made a very good first impression when we were sitting at the front desk and I was sweating and totally disheveled. But one thing, this talk today probably won't be, it'll be a little bit disjointed. But what I want to do is throw a lot of ideas, a lot of thoughts at you guys. I learned early on, I think it's one of the things that I've done well, is may not have a whole lot of original ideas, but I've always tried to take things from different people. Whether it's my brothers and sisters who have been successful, my parents, different coaches, obviously Coach Williams I played for, but I've been around a lot of really successful people. And I always try and take, you know, one or two things from all those people, and try and, you know, put it into my own life a little bit. There's one high school coach, and you mentioned I did a lot of camps and things over the years, and after I was done playing, I went over for about 2 years. I went overseas and played, and then for about 2 years got my master's and wrote the book and did a lot of camps and clinics. But there was a high school coach in Cimarron, Kansas. And if you look up Cimarron on your phone, it's way out there in the middle of nowhere. And I did a camp there for about 50 kids, and the coach let me stay at his house. And the next morning we wake up, and he was there cooking breakfast, a hot breakfast for all of his kids, and it was the coolest thing ever. And it was just, he said every morning, he's like, at night, it's hard, the kids are here and there and everywhere. He's like, the breakfast time, we're always together. I cook them a hot meal every morning, and I just thought it was really cool. And one of the things I try and do now is I try and get up with my kids and make sure we're eating breakfast together. And now that's a little thing I know, but one of the things, again, I've always tried to do, whether it's that coach or Coach Williams or Paul Pierce or any of those guys that I've been around, is try and take little things from all of them. So I guess my goal today would be that, if I was able, I never like being the dumbest one in the room, and that's the case right now, but if I could put something out there for you guys that you could take and learn from, because I have been around a lot of neat people over the years. One of the things with teamwork I think that naturally comes to play is, I think leadership and teamwork, there's probably a lot of things that I talk about right now that kind of talk about both of those areas. But the teamwork part is, there's no doubt about it, it's a huge thing. I think it's one reason there's a lot of universities, professionals, when people are hiring, I think they like to hire college athletes because they've been a part of a team, they know what it is to be a part of a team. I mean, it doesn't matter what your job is, whether you're a doctor, whether you're in business, whether you're part of a athletic department, you're part of a team, and the ability to work within a team is huge. And one of the things Coach Williams has always said back at North Carolina when I played at Kansas is the awards and rewards go to the teams that win. And I've always held that really close, and it's something I've talked to this year's team about, and I'll always talk about, is the benefits of winning in basketball, winning games, the benefits of getting the awards, first team all conference, all those kind of things, the benefits of going on, in our case, and playing professionally, those go to the teams that win. If you look at our stats and our best players, and you look at Memphis's best players and their stats, they're probably really comparable. And I talked to my team after the season about that. They're really comparable. Josh Pastner, I mean, his coaching ability above mine, it may be a lot, but we can compare whatever it is, players, coaches, anything else. The teams that win get the awards. Our team, we had one player get a second team all-conference. Memphis had first team all-conference, player of the year, another first team all-conference, second team all-conference, third team all-conference, coach of the year, because they won. And I think when you start putting a team together, if everybody can buy into the fact, if this team does well, all of us individually will get the awards and rewards. And once you can get everybody bought into that mindset, big things can happen. And that's one of the neat things is, told the team this year, I said, it's a little cheesy and everything else, you do want to get a team atmosphere and a team together for a lot of reasons, but I won't read all of this, but lessons of the goose. So geese, as you know, Canadian geese, as they're flying, they're in a V shape and all that kind of stuff, and I thought this was really interesting. As each goose flaps its wings, it creates an uplift for the bird behind it. By flying in a V formation, the whole flock adds 71% more flying range than if each bird flew alone. And so the teamwork part of it, again, is, if you can fly X number of miles or whatever as a goose, if you're flying in a V formation, you go 71% farther if you are doing it as a team because of that uplift. This thing goes on to talk about if a goose falls down or gets injured, 2 geese fall out of formation and go with that goose until it's either healthy and can fly again, or it dies and then the other 2 geese try and fly and catch up from there. It also talks about the reason the geese are always honking. It's encouragement and telling the other geese in front, keep going, keep going. And then what they do, the goose in front, after it gets tired, it backs off, goes to the end, so it has the easiest part like that. But the teamwork of the geese, again, at the end of the day, we had it on the locker room board the entire season this year, is that the goal wasn't for us to try and be 100% of our capability. It was to try and be 171% of our capability and be able to fly farther as a team and rely on each other. And I think the guys really bought into that as time went on. And so I think one of the first things we need to talk about is why be a part of a team. Why is the teamwork important? And it's just, I've seen it many, many times throughout the basketball part, and it's easy to look at a basketball team and understand the benefits of teamwork. But I think it really applies to, again, hospitals, businesses, and all that kind of stuff as well. I'm going to throw a lot of different things at you right here, but this, I thought this was a fairly funny story. After we lost 6 games, I think we lost 6 games in a row this year. And really, it's funny, every press conference I'd go in there and I'd talk about, well, I feel like we're getting better. The guys have a great attitude. We're working hard. We seem to be improving, and we're just not getting the results yet. But I think things are going really well. Well, about that time, we had an early practice. And I don't know if we were going on a trip that afternoon or what, but about 11 a.m. we were done, and I was able to go to my son's elementary school. And it was Build a Birdhouse with Dad Day. And so I was all fired up. We're going to go build a birdhouse. And so I walk into the front of the school, and I see a couple dads with hammers and wrenches and whatever else. I go, oh, that's where I need to go. So I go in the side door. I didn't know it was actually the wrong classroom. I had to go to a different classroom. But we were waiting for the kids to come out for about 5 minutes. And this guy started talking to me. He's like, and he's just one of those guys that's just kind of awkward, and we're just sitting there with nothing to talk about. So he just starts talking. He's like, oh, you UAB fan? I was like, yeah. I was wearing a sweatshirt. He's like, yeah, I'm a fan. He's like, oh, I'm a huge fan. I go to all the games. I do, and he goes on and on, and I'm like, oh, that's great, and it is great. I was all fired up. I'm like, that's fantastic. He's like, boy, the team's really struggling. It's like, yeah. Team's struggling right now. I said, playing hard, but it's been tough right now. He's like, it's just been awful. I go to every game. I'm the biggest fan there is. He's like, it's unbelievable. He's like, it looks like that coach has no idea what he's doing out there. It's like, okay. I'm getting a little bit quiet now. He's like, I can do a better job than he's doing. I mean, that guy has no clue. And at this point, I just kind of get quiet. And I could now start seeing his brain just start turning a little bit. And he looks back at me and goes, you don't work at UAB, do you? I was like, I do. He's like, so what do you do? I was like, I'm the head basketball coach. So he then tried to put his foot in his mouth and tried to get out of it and things like that. But I hope that he hadn't come to all the games and had no idea what I looked like. But the reason I tell that story is it's so easy, especially when things aren't going perfectly, to turn negative. Whether it's if you're a member of the team right now on the basketball team, whether you're a fan, whether you're administrator, it's so easy to turn negative, especially when the results aren't always simple and easy and everything else. And I think that's a great lesson, is that it doesn't mean you don't try and find solutions. It doesn't mean you don't try and be productive and try and get things better and better. But it's just, I think in our society today, it's just so easy to just, well, that didn't work, that guy's an idiot. Or that didn't work, that team's not very good. And after that, I think it was actually right after that discussion with that guy, we went on to win, I think, 7 of 9. And the team, like I kept saying, we're improving. And it didn't help during that stretch. We were playing the best teams in the league and playing a really tough schedule and a road schedule. And then we kept improving, and we ended up winning a lot of games down the stretch. But it was But at that point, it was funny because I went to the team and I was really positive with the team even during that losing stretch, and I became even more positive, saying, "Look, things are going to turn around. Things are going to turn around." But I was a little mad after I went home and told my wife about it and kicking the dog. Actually, we don't have a dog, but I was a little mad for a little bit. Within a teamwork, within an organization, I think one of the things, kind of looking back to Coach Williams at North Carolina, at Kansas, that he did, he was unbelievable in making sure everybody within that team felt important. Whether it was a team manager, whether it was a star player, whether it was the walk-on that never played, everybody was part of that team, and their role was extremely important. As a player, I kind of had all the roles. I mean, in high school, I was a star player, and so was the leader of the team, and everything was nice and easy, and I was the star. At Kansas, when I played, I was probably one of those guys in the middle. I mean, I played with Jacques Vaughn, who was an All-American, who's now the head coach of the Orlando Magic. Paul Pierce, who's been in the NBA since he graduated. Rafe LaFrentz was National Player of the Year. Scott Pollard played in the NBA for a gazillion years. The two guys that backed me up played in the NBA. Both of them played in the NBA 9 years after we were done playing. So we had a ton of talent, and I was one of those players and was able to play on the team, but I certainly was not the star of the team. But I felt like I was very important to that team, just like I was in high school when I was a star. And then I played on a USA team after my sophomore year, and the team was unbelievable, but it was Tim Duncan and Allen Iverson, Kerry Kittles, Ray Allen. I have a picture in my basement. It's basically everybody on the team played in the NBA for a dozen years except for me. And it was an unbelievable team. And on that team, I was sitting at the end of the bench cheering them on. And I think we won every game by at least 40 points, and I have a gold medal, and it was a really neat thing. But on that team, again, I was the last player on the bench, but I still felt like I was an important member of the team. So I think that's a lesson for all of us as we are developing groups and teams, is to make sure everybody, whatever their role is, that's an important role. And if it's not an important role, it's not an important person, they shouldn't be on the team. But if you're forming a team, is making sure everybody on that team, from the star player to the janitor and things like that, making sure they're all feel very, very important. Actually, I'll tell this story just quickly since I'm kind of talking on that. After I was done playing, my first job, after I, again, goofed off for a couple of years and had some fun in Kansas, Coach Williams got me on the staff at Kansas. And the job was, I don't even know what it's called, administrative assistant, GA, basically a guy that did all the grunt work. And I loved it. It was a blast. But one of the best compliments I ever got is after we played Nebraska one time. And I just finished playing at Kansas, and I was, at Kansas, if you start on a team, it's a big deal. And so we play at Nebraska, all the guys, these are the guys I played with. They're all putting their sweaty jerseys on the ground and everything else. And I'm in there grabbing the jerseys, putting them in bags, helping the managers take the bags out to the bus, and just helping the process go, because that was what my role was. And one of the assistant ADs came up to me and said, "Man, you were my favorite player when you played." He's like, "But that's the coolest thing I've ever seen, is that you don't mind doing the little things to help out." And I thought that was really important. And that was my role on the team at that point, was to basically be a glorified manager. And Coach Williams and everybody else, I thought that was an important thing. And so it wasn't something I just said, well, I'm above picking up dirty clothes and things like that. So I think that's one thing that we all need to understand, is not to, none of us, as the head coach right now, if I need to sweep the floor, if I need to do something like that, so be it. Let's get it done and make sure we get the end result that we want to get to. This will be a little bit more basketball specific, but some of the things we do to develop a team and kind of emphasize the team atmosphere, we point to the passer, and we're trying to get better at this. We're still not as good as we want to be. But if I pass to somebody and they make the shot and I pass the basketball, we tell the guy that shot the basketball to point back at who passed it to you, to make sure you're giving credit to that person, because without that pass you don't make the shot, and make sure everybody in the crowd sees who passed you the basketball. That was something Dean Smith started at North Carolina a long time ago, and I think it's a great way, again, to reward the guy that maybe isn't getting all the credit because he didn't make the basket. That same kind of attitude, we grade tape after every game. And so our coaching staff will get in and we'll spend a few hours watching basically we watch every possession and every player on every possession and grade them. And we'll go through on an offensive possession, and you might get, if you throw the ball into the post and the post player threw it back out to you, both of those players would get a half of an assist. So it's not just going over and doing stats. We're grading you on the things that we think are really valuable. And it's usually the stuff that's not on a stat sheet. If you got a floor burn and dove on the ground, we'd give you a good play for that. If you forgot what play we were running, you get a bad play. But all the things, if you helped a guy off the ground, we'd give a good play sometimes. If the bench gets excited, there's a guy not even in the game and he's getting up and high-fiving guys, we might give him a good play for that. But we try and emphasize, again, the team and what's important to the team when we grade film. And then at the end, after we grade film, one of the biggest things we do is a defensive grade. So you might have 20 goods and 10 bads, and whoever has the best ratio, they get to go to, or they get plus points, and plus points get you out of running. But we're trying to do things that reward you for doing the right things and being a good teammate and things, and the grading film is one of those things. With teams also, I think, learned early on, I think competition is really good. A quote I've heard a long time ago is competitive space is fluid. And within a team where, if you have a team and within a conference, it's not that Memphis has to be that top team. And they were this year. But we're going to try and figure out a way, and they're out of the conference now, but try and get to the top. And competitive space is fluid, and if you just have the attitude that, you're the best team or you're the best player and that's where I belong, you're going to get passed up. And I think when you're building a team and everything else, I think competition is really good. And when we have practice, everything we do is a competition, everything day in, day out. I never want the guys to feel like it's just their God-given right to be a starter or it's just their God-given right to be on the team. And I want everything to be competitive and try and beat out that next guy. And I think when you're building a team, I think that is important to try and always get the best out of everybody. Once you get comfortable, it makes it a lot harder. I'm not the coach that just replaces the starting lineup all the time. But when somebody is beat out, I will make those changes. And I want the guys to understand whoever's played the most minutes are the guys that have earned it in practice and earned it by their production in the games. But I do think competition is a really, really good thing. The other thing with teams, I think it's huge to put yourself in a position to fail. In other words, you can't be afraid of failure. You got to try and set those goals and those standards very, very high with an understanding you might not reach them every single time. Anybody here been backstage at a circus? No? I was so excited because I've told this story a few times, and we were playing in New York at Madison Square Garden. The next day the circus was going to be there. And two of my colleagues they're walking through underneath Madison Square Garden, and they actually saw the elephants back there. And so I've told this story so many times that I'm about to tell you. So I go back there, and then the security guard said, no, we can't go back there. So I don't know if this is true, but I'm pretty sure it is. If you go backstage at Madison Square Garden, the adult or the baby elephants, what they do is they tie a rope to their ankles and tie that rope to a big pole so they can't get away. I mean, obviously it makes sense. You can't have the elephants just go roaming wild and free. And so, but apparently what happens is that baby elephant struggles and struggles and struggles for a while and figures out that it's impossible to get away from this pole. And at that point, once the adult elephants, because most of the time they'd be able to rip through this rope and rip down the whole thing anyway, the adult elephants realize that it's impossible to get away. And so once they come off the floor or whatever, and they put the rope around their ankle, the rope goes about 3 or 4 feet and it's cut off and it's not tied to anything. And the adult elephants never try and go anywhere again. And they just decide it's impossible. And once they failed a couple times, it's like, well, I'm done, and they can't ever get away again. There's another similar story. It's about a barracuda. So the barracuda is the meanest animal in the animal kingdom. All right, vicious, the whole bit. So two scientists are in a room, and they have a fish tank, and they have a little mackerel over here and a barracuda over here. So obviously the barracuda goes over and eats the mackerel. But now this time, you have the barracuda over here, and you have the mackerel over here, and they put a clear plastic shield right in the middle. And the barracuda swims over, hits his face, hits his face, hits his face, hits his face. Okay, he decides pretty soon, well, days go by. They take out the clear plastic shield pretty early on, and he had quit. And so now you have a mackerel here, a barracuda here, nothing in between them. The guy is starving now, and he won't go over there and even try again. And so the point of that story is, and I love telling that story, especially to kids and things, but I like to think about it in my own life, you got to put yourself out there and be willing to try again and be willing to fail sometimes. And as a team, the goal is to set the bar really high. And this year, before the season, we did talk about our current team trying to make the NCAA tournament, trying to play in the postseason. And for kind of what we had on the team, those were really, really lofty goals. And we didn't reach all of them, but at the end of the year, I also thought that we did a great job of taking what we had and building a team. And our banquet after the season was a very positive banquet because we did a lot of those things to try and reach those goals. I think the biggest mistake is not setting the goals high enough and reaching all your goals. With me, my goal was always to play in the NBA and play at the highest level. And I was not the fastest, tallest. I was not the best shooter, and I did not play in the NBA. But I did play and win a gold medal at the World University Games. I played at Kansas. I played overseas. I did some really neat things. And even though I didn't reach that ultimate goal of playing in the NBA, I wouldn't be here, if I didn't chase that dream as much as I possibly could. So I think setting the goals as high as you possibly can and chasing those is very, very big. Just a couple last things, and I am going to take some time to answer some questions as well. But within teams and teamwork and everything else, the ability to communicate is huge. And I think it's easy for, there was a professor, my entrepreneurship professor back in Kansas. He was the best professor I ever had. And one day he started walking around the room, and I was thinking, man, what am I writing and everything else? And he was communicating and telling us about all kinds of different things. And that day, though, he could tell he wasn't getting through to anybody and was like just kind of rambling. He walked to the back of the classroom, and it was amazing. Just instantly, everybody was focused on what he was talking about and things like that. It's easy as a coach for me to say the right things. You're not running the right play. You're not doing this. Or in film session, you're in there for an hour saying, you didn't set this screen. You didn't set this screen. Communication is not just what you say, but it's the ability to communicate and make sure everybody hears it as well. And I think that was a lesson I took from that professor. He was the best professor I ever had, is that he had the ability to communicate with people. And that's one thing I try and talk with our guys about and my staff about, really. Today's day and age with the student athletes we have, they're so, I'm afraid my kids can become the same way, but the technology and their attention spans are so short that if you're sitting there for an hour and just talking, you're not getting through to them, even if you're saying the greatest things in the world. And I think the ability to communicate within a team is just absolutely huge. And it's just easy. It's easy to go and say, all right, well, I did my job. I said the things I was supposed to say and move on. But the ability to communicate, I think, is good. Within a team, I think one thing is that can get lost sometimes. It's okay to be an individual. It's okay to be a little bit unique. Scott Pollard, who played on our team at Kansas, he painted his fingernails. He grew big sideburns. He was the weirdest guy there ever's been. But at the end of the day, he was all about the team. He was one of the greatest teammates ever. And whether it's making the extra pass, whether it's helping somebody else up, so he could be an individual on that team. When I look back to my team, you had me, who was from Lake Tahoe, California, Jacques Vaughn, who was from Southern California, Paul Pierce, who grew up in a really rough part of town in Southern California. You got Scott Pollard, who painted his fingernails. You have Rafe LaFrance, who was born and raised in Iowa, just a little small town farm guy. You had Billy Thomas, who was in the inner city of Louisiana. And so you had a group of guys that were so different. And I think it was really important for that team where we all got along, we all had great chemistry, we all believed in the team, but we were all individuals as well. And it was really neat once, as time went on, the more you got to learn about everybody. And I would talk to Billy Thomas about life in Shreveport, and the tough times he had growing up, and then he could learn a little bit about me as well. But being individuals, yet still keeping the team concept and the team goals tight as well, I think has been a really neat thing for me. One of the things, this is a big thing, I think, especially the last few years, as I've become more into a leadership role, and this is maybe more on leadership than it is teamwork, but it's easy. Very few times, I think as time goes on, the more I'm looking around and learning, whether it's here, whether it's North Carolina, whether it's just looking at different businesses and things, it's extremely important to be able to make tough decisions. You can't, in other words, I'm sitting here saying you got to be part of a team, you got to be part of a team, you can be an individual, but you have to buy into the team. I do believe in trying to rehabilitate guys. You know, all right, you're straying away, come back in. All right, you're skipping class. Here are the rules. Here's what you have to do. You're not working hard in these drills. Here's what you have to do. I think you give them people that aren't doing what they're supposed to do, give them chances. Get better, get better. Show them the way, show them the right way. But at some point, if it's not working, you got to change. You got to make the change. And as a leader, I think nowadays it's just, I know it's hard to make changes and tell people no and things like that. But as a team and as a leader of that team, the team comes first. The team is more important. And while we give people second chances and third chances, if there is that weak link that is not bought into what you're doing, I think it's extremely important to be able to make that change. And again, this is a little bit more on leadership, but as a leader, it is important to make tough decisions at some point. I don't think you need to be the leader that instantly something goes bad and boom, you're gone, you're fired, that kind of thing. But when somebody has proven they can't do the job, I think it just seems in society right now that it's we'll make it work. We'll figure out a way. We'll give them another chance. We'll give them another chance. We'll give them another chance. We'll put them in this area over here. And at some point, I do think it's just for the team to move on, for the team to be the very, very best. Tough decisions have to be made at sometimes, and sometimes that means that weakest link does have to go. And as unpleasant as that is and things, it's just the team, and I think that goes back to the idea of the team is bigger than any individual. If you're going to try and fly 171% like the Geese do, you have to know that if the weakest link is not producing, sometimes they have to go. But I do have a couple more things, but I wanted to kind of get into some questions and answers right now. If you guys had anything that I can visit about, whether it's UAB basketball, whether it's people I've been around, whatever else. I'll put you guys on the spot a little bit.
Can you describe, I think it's really fascinating that, how you set up your expectations and then monitor it after the plays and stuff like this. Can you describe, like, so you have a goal, let's say you're going to have this many tasks?
Yeah, so grading film, yeah. We actually, there's a number of things we're grading, and they'll see the grading sheet afterwards. And it really does emphasize, you have a stat sheet after a game where it says you were 5 of 7 from the field, 2 or 3 from the free throw line, you had 2 steals and that kind of thing. But on the grading sheet, it actually goes across, so it's, your name, Jared Hass, and then the first thing is going to be good defense, then it's going to be bad defense, and then it's going to be deflections. So you're getting credit every time you deflect a basketball. Maybe the guy still catches the basketball, nothing ever happens, but you get credit for deflecting a pass. So we're trying to say, be active. Block shots, charges, they may not call a charge, but we think you're there in the right spot, you get a draw charge. Assist to turnovers, and again, we kind of talked about getting partial credit for things. If I dribble the ball off my foot, it goes over here, and I get it back, and it's not turned over, we're giving you a half loss of ball for that. All the screens you set, if we tell you to set a screen, we run play number 1, and we say, go set that screen, you only get a half screen because we told you to do it. If you set a screen on your own, then you get a full screen. And then one of the big ones is we'll do offensive rebounding. And if you get inside position, you'll get a half an offensive rebound. If you get an offensive rebound, you get 1. If you get an offensive rebound and make the basket, you actually get 2 for that. And then good plays, bad plays is kind of a catch-all for all the other things. And again, whether it's remembering plays or whatever. But again, this takes a number of hours to do. And we'll go through each play and each player and just call things out and chart all this. And we're making notes throughout the game as well. But the guys on the team, I think early on, I think they had no idea what we were talking about. We'd say the grades, and they're like, that doesn't mean anything. So we had to really, early in the year, talk through and actually grade film in front of them so they saw the things we were talking about. And they also, again, get rewarded for doing the things we tell of them. And so if they earn those plus points, Coach Hass goes crazy on them. They have these plus points built up, so they know they can't. They can always plus out, and the guys that don't have the plus points, those are the ones I have to run to death and watch them throw up. So the plus points can be very, very valuable. But it is a real process. Yeah. But that is, I think that's important too, is to always have those rewards or fear tactics to be able to get the most out of them. But does that answer your question?
Did you see an improvement or change over the process once you put that system in place?
Yeah.
How do you reward that change?
I think it was, and again, this Coach Smith developed way back at North Carolina and Coach Williams, and we always did it on staff. And I think as the guys understood what it was more and more. And to be totally honest with you, some guys just kind of listen and don't really think much of it. All right, I got my plus point, whatever. But it starts to be really cool when the guys hear their name, this defensive winner, he's like, yes, and he's really fired up and understands that it's a big deal. Jackie Manuel was the starting 3-man at North Carolina in 2005. He scored, I might miss this, he probably played 30 minutes a game, scored 4 or 5 points a game, got a few rebounds a game, assists maybe here and there, steals, got a few steals, but we had NBA player, NBA player, NBA player, NBA player. His backup was an NBA player, and he was a, people probably looked and said, why is he starting? He doesn't score a lot of points. He's this and that. When we graded film, Jackie Manuel won defensive award. Jackie Manuel had the most deflections. Jackie Manuel had the best assist turnover ratio. Jackie Manuel had the best good play bad play ratio. He set the most screens, and so that was a way to really, not that we needed it, not that Coach Williams needed it, but justify who's in the game and why they're in the game and that kind of thing. And that's in a lot of ways the ultimate reward for getting those grades. Yeah.
I'm a college sports fan, but one of the things that kind of, notice, especially with basketball, is retention now. You have to build a team every single year because people don't stay.
Yep.
So we kind of have the same issue with holding staff and our emergency room. Really good nurses to
Yep.
move on. So, do you have comments or tips on how to keep a team that's working, keep the individuals within the team?
Yeah, it's a great point, and it's I'll come at this a couple of different angles. When the economy's bad and everything, and times are tough, one of the first things that's cut in a business is HR. It's kind of like, well, we can cut back HR and we'll build that back up later. I think if I was in a position, I had a business, and things were going south, and it was going south all the way around me too, one of the things I'd do is strengthen up that HR and find the best damn people to hire the best people. And so as all these people are leaving, getting laid off, is find the best people to build the right personnel for your group. Now, having said that, there's a couple different ways directly with me right now. One is the team, the actual players on the team. In college basketball and college athletics, it's amazing how transfers and guys leaving and coming, it's an epidemic. It's just amazing how it's all happening. Some of it's good, some of it's just the price of doing business, and I think all the kids think they're going to play in the NBA, and so when they don't, they always want to go, and the grass is always greener on the other side. But the one thing I want to talk about, the specific to what you're talking about, is my staff. When I took the job, I don't know if I did anything good or bad since I've been here, but I know the best thing I did was hire my staff. And part of it was doing my research, part of it was getting a little bit lucky. But retaining them, they are well aware that I hold them in high regard, that I value them. I mean, there's not a day goes by that I'm not saying thank you or good job with that. And I do understand that there's going to be limits on what I can do financially for them just within the university. I mean, I know that I'm not going to be able to go and tell the AD every day, hey, they need a raise, they've done a great job. I do take every cent I make from camp and I give it to them to try and give a financial reward. And that's obviously one that is important, and finances do keep people. I mean, if you pay people another $50,000, they might say, oh, all right, I'll stay. But I do think there's a lot of other ways that you can keep people. I mean, the grading system for the players really works about feedback, giving them good feedback. And if somebody's doing really well, they're always getting that positive feedback. I think with your staff, one thing that I'm trying to do with my staff is always giving them appropriate feedback, but I'm really pleased with my staff. I want to make sure that I'm telling them when they're doing the right things, rewarding them, doing things like in the newspaper. If I have a chance to say, Rob Eason on my staff, we had hoops on the asphalt before the season started. We built an outdoor court, had about 3,000 people there. We brought in lights. I mean, we wanted to do a kickoff event for the season. And everybody around the athletic department was kind of like, no, it's not going to work. We tried it before. It's not going to, it's just not a good thing. And finally we said, no, we're doing it. And Rob Eason really took the bull by the horn and said, all right, we're running with it. And at 8 a.m., we closed off 14th Street, just south of University, put an entire floor down, had a company put an entire floor down, brought bleachers in to surround the thing, brought in video boards, brought in lights, set this whole thing up by 4 o'clock that evening. When it turned dark, we got 3,000 people to come out there, and it was an awesome, awesome deal. And every chance I get, I didn't lead the thing. Rob Eson did, and I make sure I try and give as much credit to him with recruiting. We've done an unbelievable job recruiting. Every chance I can talk about it in the newspaper or to my boss or to you guys, I keep talking about my staff is unreal at recruiting. The guys they're bringing in. And so I'm hoping that that kind of thing makes them want to stay. And I also have a very gifted staff that I think is going to get a lot of opportunities to go elsewhere. Now, I do have the benefit, trying to think, this is filmed, so I don't want this to get out too much. My staff, some of them worked at places in the past where their bosses were, it was not the greatest environment in the world. And I think they've really enjoyed, I'm the kind of boss that says, do your job, do it well. And I'm not going to be looking over your shoulder every day. You just get it done. And a lot of times I'll be like, get out of here. Why are you still in here today? You know, because we work so hard. I mean, this weekend coming up, we're going to, Friday night, we'll have a recruit in town. We'll be busy till 11 at night. Saturday will be 8 a.m. until midnight. And then Sunday, unless something changes, we're going to be in a car, probably my entire staff on Sunday, probably leave after the one recruit leaves. We'll have 12 hours of driving back and forth, or 6 hours there, 6 hours back with a 2-hour meeting in between. So it's going to be 8 a.m. on Sunday, probably till about 2 or 3 a.m. on Monday morning. And so on Tuesday, I want to make sure, guys, why are you here? You know, at Tuesday at 3 o'clock, get out of here, go golf or something. But I think they've really appreciated that. So I think in terms of retention, it's huge. And if you can have some continuity with them among a staff, it's big. Monetary, I mean, let's be honest, I think that's one of the biggest things you can do, but it's also the hardest thing to come up with. But there are other ways to make your staff feel good and want to be a part of something. And the other thing, then you start talking about team and teamwork and setting goals and that kind of thing. If they want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, then also convince them the grass is not always greener on the other side, too. I mean, everybody was always looking for that next quick fix, and if you have a good situation, I think just convince them of that.
Related to that, I have a question on just advice on motivation. So, particular teams, basically, there's residents who rotate through these different services. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times, the resident will come onto your service and isn't super keen, and they're now covering that group of patients. You know, and without being the capability to pinch them.
Yeah.
or cut them. Basically, I didn't know if you have any pearls about how to motivate effectively when somebody is, there for a finite period of time.
Yeah.
Recognizing that they have other goals, but basically,
Yeah. No, I have two things there, and I was with Coach Williams a long time, so I keep bringing his name up and how he did things, and it is what it is. It's, I've with him so long and know how he would deal with things. I loved one thing he would talk about. He'd say, strong leaders don't treat everybody equally. They treat everybody fairly. And so, for example, I played with Greg Ostertag. Greg Ostertag, I don't mind putting this on tape because I say it to his face, it was the biggest goof there ever was. He was 7'2", he was lazy, nicest guy in the world. I get along with him great, but on the court, he did not want to work, didn't want to do what Coach said. Or he'd like to do what Coach said, but if it required effort, he wouldn't want to do it. Coach would have to yell and scream and threaten and, just crush the kid to try and get him to do anything. And Greg was fine with it, but, that's the only way he could get anything out of him. With me, if Coach said, Jared, you didn't deny that, that's ridiculous. I would run through the wall the next time to make sure I would get it done. So knowing who you're dealing with and how that communication is going to, what's going to be the most effective way of communication. But I do think that it's not something that if you treat person A one way, that you have to treat person B the exact same way, but trying to find out what buttons you can push and push those buttons. But again, not treating everybody the same is probably one of the big things.
So how do you deal with the situation when you have your Greg Ostertag who isn't trying very hard, and you have other people who are, like yourself, who you look at this guy and say, why am I working so hard when he isn't?
Yeah.
So I don't think it's working.
Well, one thing is, at the end of the day, too, we're all big boys, and he's producing on game day. He has 6 blocks in a game and 12 rebounds and 14 points. And if I was Coach Williams, I would have played him too. In terms of, because on game day, we're here to produce. And maybe you do have a resident or doctor, I don't know exactly how it all works, that isn't doing an unbelievable job or not doing what he's supposed to, or he's maybe doesn't have the best attitude or that kind of thing, but is phenomenal at his job, you don't want to just cut bait and say, get out of here. Because at the end of the day, your job is to produce on game day. But you also have to be able to keep your credibility along the way as well. And I think, again, kind of looking back to Coach Williams, he was always able to do that. Greg Ostertag was going to play. He was always very, very effective. And when he wasn't, Coach let him know. And Greg also came around, too. It wasn't like he was that way as an entire, but that was just kind of his default setting was very relaxed and casual. And then Coach would just have to bring the best out of him every day. Yes, yeah.
So as a coach, as a leader, you set the goals and expectations and rewards. You have fear tactics you use. All these things in regards to the team and the leader's expectation for the team.
Yeah.
But how do you keep in check the well-being of the individual in regards to the well-being of the team? What's more important? Is the team more important always than your players' mental health?
No.
Abilities, those kind of things.
Yeah.
I know it's all about technique.
No, it is. I think.
But just by default, you're also the role model for them. So,
Yep.
but how do you keep that so that it's important that they have their grades and their behavior off the court?
Yep. And on the court, the entire thing. When we're in a team setting, it is about the team. It is about the team, about the team, about the team, about the team. And after practice, I'm going to go sit over with little Johnny over here and say, hey, I thought you had a good practice. You need to do this and this better. How are your grades? We'll have individual meetings throughout the season. We'll talk about rehab. So in the team setting, we're really talking about team stuff. But off to the side, I think it is the job to continuously talk about that individual and how we're going to help you grow as a student, as an athlete, as a person. What are the struggles you have right now? And I think those things do coexist or can coexist. Well, they do coexist. The better the team does, the individuals are going to succeed as well. Kind of goes back to the very, very beginning thing. The awards and rewards goes to the teams that do well. And so for the team to do well, the individuals are going to be thriving along the way. But you do have to, throughout the season or a year or whatever, is pluck those people out individually and say, why aren't you doing this, or you're doing a great job with this, and continue to analyze every piece throughout. I don't know if that answers it well enough, but I do think you can coexist and have a strong team with all the individuals. And the strongest team you're ever going to have is where every individual's performing to their best. Yeah.
You also have fun with your team. So you guys find this. Your lives next door. He has the team over. He has them for dinner. He gets full moon barbecue for them. He does fun stuff with the team that I think promotes team building activity when it's not in a practice setting. I think that's important. They really enjoy it. You look over and they're having a great time. They love it.
When I think, I appreciate that. And what it is, the relationships, at the end of the day, if you have strong relationships, you're going to get a whole lot more out of my players than if I just am that guy that shows up right before practice and have practice and leave after that. Without naming a name, I think I can tell this story without a problem, but last summer after I got the job, everything was going well, and then this kid came up to me, it was during the summer at some point, said, hey, Coach, I'm fried right now. I'm overwhelmed with everything. He's like, I've lost passion for basketball. I don't want to be on the team next year. And I said, all right, it's not a problem. I said, first thing, you are going to finish your academics. You're going to finish this summer. And then at that point, you can make a game plan after that. I said, you're going to finish your academics. I said, now, have you talked to anybody about it? Have you talked to your family? He's like, no. He's like, well, have you talked to your teammates? Or no. He's like, do you have some good friends? Have you talked to them about it? It's like, no, I don't. I don't really have anybody I'm that close to. I said, well, all right, we need to figure this out. I said, look, if you don't want to be on a team, it's not going to be a problem, but here's what we're going to do. So I want you to take this weekend. I said, are you open to the idea of me getting somebody on campus that is not pro basketball, is not trying to keep you on the team, but just a person and a voice and a sounding board for you that you can talk through this with that really can get in? I said, I don't want to be that guy because you never know if, you might be thinking I'm trying to keep you on the team or whatever. I said, an independent person that I've just got here, so I don't know who it's going to be, but if I can find somebody for you to be a sounding board, are you open to that? He said, I am, for sure. I said, all right, come back on Monday. Let's meet on Monday and visit a little bit at that point. And so he did that. He comes back in on Monday, and he says, Coach, I had a really good talk. I really appreciate you setting that up. It was really good. I said, okay. I said, what do you think? He's like, I do want to keep grinding with the team. I want to be on the team. I said, it's no problem. I think it'd be great. And I said, but let's just monitor it right now. I said, let's cut out the weights. Let's cut out the practice right now. Let's just focus on the grades. Let's get you calm down a little bit, and we'll build it back up a little bit as it goes. And so he's like, that's great. So walking out of the office, he started to get tears in his eyes. He's like, Coach, he's like, I did talk to my cousin, and he said, well, when you went and told Coach that you were leaving, knocked me out of the team, he said he blasted you and cursed you out and kicked you out, right? He's like, no, he told me to finish classes and go talk to this guy. And then he's like, and then I talked to, some guy I played with at this other school, and he said, well, Coach blasted you, right? And he kicked you out of his office. He's like, no, he told me that get good grades and finish up and everything like that. And I think if they know that you care about them as people, that there's a big basketball part of this that we want to produce on the court, but as long as they know that there is more to it, that you are genuinely invested in their academics and invested in them as people, I think it goes a long way. And I think that really helped our relationship as the season went on as well. This side of the room, I've been ignoring you guys. Sorry.
Tips for communicating with you?
In general, if a kid does that, and we have more than 10 players, probably plays a part of it too. I will be that guy that's yelling and screaming and kick him out of practice, because there are certain things that are going to be you draw a line in the sand and said you're not going to cross this line. I think you have to be really have a backbone on certain things, and on certain things you bend but don't break. And I think that's just something you kind of have to have a feel for. But yeah, I don't have probably a great answer on that one, other than you got to feel your way through it.
Any comments on, like insightful comments? The whole Mike Rice with records thing.
Yeah.
Coaches say this is awful. But from a coach's, when it is awful. But from a coach's perspective, clearly he got negative and kept on getting negative.
Yeah.
Any insight into basically what went wrong there?
Well, I think if you took, I don't think that's a completely isolated incident. Now, he went pretty far over the line when you start throwing the balls and some of the language he used and things like that. But if you take out a little bit of language and a little bit of the ball throwing, there's a lot of coaches in America that, between football and basketball, I think some of the things, it's unbelievable. And I think it's getting a little bit better as time goes on, hopefully. But again, it goes back to my background, is I think you can get a lot out of the kids, and even the most out of the kids. Yes, you do have to yell and scream sometimes. Yes, you do have to put them on the inline and run sometimes. But I think it needs to be few and far between. I played for a coach at one point that was yelled and screamed and cursed the entire time. And pretty soon it was all just white noise. Nothing fazed you at that point. And then when he really wanted to make a point, he had no way to do it. He'd already done everything. And so with, I like to think when I'm coaching, if I yell and I scream a little bit, it's getting their attention, because I just don't do it that often. So when I do go ballistic, it's like, oh, coach is serious now. We better do exactly what he's saying, so you can kind of go to that. But if every day it's just yelling and screaming and that kind of thing, when you really want to make that point, there's nothing else you can go to. But I think if you are a strong leader, I just don't think you have to communicate that way all the time. And if you have the respect of the players. Now, if you don't have respect of the players and all you have is the fear factor, that's one thing. But hopefully you gain the respect of the players and they want to do what you say just because they know you care about them, they know you're knowledgeable and that kind of thing.
So kind of to that, can you speak a little bit to, I think some of us have been in situations where you've had to go into a situation and work with the team that you didn't put together. You kind of came into a situation and these weren't the players you recruited, these weren't, and how did you get them to believe?
Well, I will say, I think you had the whole range there. When I first took the job, I think there were probably a couple players that almost instantly liked what I said and were pretty bought in right away. And then I've been here an entire year, and I would say there's been one or two players that are still not bought in. And that they were respectful. I mean, they did what I asked, but, bought in that really, if Coach says he cares about you, he means it. If Coach says that you better do that, I'm going to do that because I know it's best. And I think there's a couple players that didn't get completely bought in yet. And so everything else, and there's the whole gamut in between. And so my job was just to try and work it. Hey, come on over to my house, come meet with me, let's eat lunch, let's do this, and try and build that relationship and build that trust factor. It will be a lot easier. We have at least 5, maybe 6, 7 new guys coming in next year, depending on what happens in recruiting right now. It is easier with those guys because I've built a relationship with them for a year now before they even get here. And so that trust factor is there. But with, again, like you're talking about, a lot of times you'll get in a situation, it's not people that you recruited, it's not people you've dealt with for a long time, and you have to be able to try and get to the point where there's that respect level and trust level there. But I do think, I've thrown the word out respect a few times now. I think that's a big thing. If they respect what you do and how you do it, if you're knowledgeable about your job, treat people the right way. If people respect you, I think it's probably the first thing to be able to get people to buy in and do the team and that kind of stuff. What do you think? Go team. Well, I appreciate it. And I will say this, there may be I don't think I'll be recruiting a lot of kids that are going to try and be doctors, but there is one that I've already brought over and met with some people. And in the future, I may come knocking on your guys' door for help from time to time and love to get you to games. But if you guys ever need anything over at the basketball office, just feel free to let me know. I'd be happy to help. Okay? Thank you, guys.
So career point total was 1246, which is very impressive. And the winner, closest to not going over, is Nancy Toefel at 1211.
Nice.
And out of 100,
That was the Price is Right rules, huh?
it is, yes. You gotta be close, can't go over. And of 101 games, how many did he start? The answer is 99. And we have 2 people who have 98, so I need you to pick one. Matthew Stahl.
Can I tell one quick story that's kind of funny? So my junior year, I was having a good year, and I was kind of known as the defensive specialist in a lot of ways. So one of the games I didn't start, it was a walk-on senior night. And so we were playing Oklahoma State for the Big 8 championship. And they have a guy named Randy Rutherford. We played Oklahoma State early in the year at Oklahoma State. Big country. It was the guy's nickname. He was 7 foot tall. He had 30 points, 20 rebounds, kicked our butts. So we come back to Allen Fieldhouse, so the Big 8 championship game. I don't start. I don't play the first 3 minutes because the walk-on was his senior night. He holds Randy Rutherford scoreless for 3 minutes. I check in, basically play the other 37 minutes of the game. We won the game, okay? So we won the Big 8 championship, and Randy Rutherford ended up with 45 points. So my old staff used to remind me of that a lot. But so one of the games I didn't start, my guy had 45 points. Maybe that was my way of telling Coach, you better start me or my guy's going to score.